G'day and welcome to the Cheese Room Monday night show. Hotspur Way is quickly becoming as busy as Bondi Beach on a Saturday afternoon. Scott on a week when Scottman officially starts his new role as Levy number 2. Ange Postecoglou and his backroom staff officially walk through the door. We have players returning to pre-season training with some notable returnees. And we've got transfer business that's reminiscent of Caller's Football Manager career game with full of cheat codes. So lots and lots to talk about tonight. Joining me tonight to discuss everything Spurs, we've got a bonza lineup. Firstly, we've got my old Cobber and Gibbo. Gibbo, good to have you back on. It feels like it's been a while since we've been together. How are you doing?
Yeah, mate, it does feel like a while. Doesn't it? Yeah, all right, mate. Ready, lot going on this evening on the socials. Like quite a few bits and pieces to talk about, mate. So, yeah, mate, introduce you to the two guests. They're far more interesting than me, mate.
Well, they certainly are. We certainly are. We've got a right ripper with us tonight. Someone that I've followed for a long time on his channel, Spurs Talk Show. We've got Sean in our bottom right. Sean, how are you doing? Introduce yourself to the Cheese Room.
Yeah, I'm good, buddy. Thank you guys for having me on. I've been a long time admirer of the show. First time appearance, I think. I think so. Like I said, I was saying to you backstage, I think I've been on with Caller maybe on different channels, but never actually on the Cheese Room. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here. I come from the Spurs Talk Show channel. So yeah, it's good to be here. Looking forward to talking Tottenham with you guys. Thanks for having me.
One of the questions I've got for you, Sean, if I may, as a fan of your work, is the Sean walks stuff you do when you go out for a walk with your dog. How did that start? How did you come up with that idea? It's brilliant, by the way.
Honestly, mate, I'm a big guy. Or I've had a lot of health problems, and I'm a big fella. I peaked at I used to be 13 stone. I peaked at 20 stone, and I got some warnings from the doctor after COVID. I just went, when people say when you put on a few pounds over Christmas, people say, oh, you've had a good Christmas. I had a really good COVID where I just went out of control. So I got a dog like a lot of people did in COVID. And then I decided to take the dog out for a walk, but soon realized that it's hard work when you're lumping around as much weight as I carried. So I thought it's a good distraction to take your mind off the fact that you're walking, to put the camera in front of you and start talking about Tottenham. And that's how it started. And that's how it's continued, So.
Yeah, I love it.
And wow.
It's brilliant. Is it all one take, by the way? You can be honest.
It's all one take. Sometimes it's the fourth take, though. I'll figure as I go along. I'll be like, oh no, I screwed up here or screwed up there, whatever. But it is all one take, and then every now and again you might find me edit out a couple of seconds of dead air or whatever. But generally speaking, it's all one take. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I do. I'll be honest with you, Sean. I'm that guy that looks for continuity flaws. In the background as you're walking. That post wasn't there a minute ago, but no, I do love them. They're brilliant. Thanks for coming on. Looking forward to getting into it tonight. And then, of course, finally, but no means least, we've got Sash from Spurs Reach, second appearance on the show. Welcome back, Sash. How you doing?
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on again. It's great to be back, and yeah, there's loads of stuff happening. It's July, and it feels like season should be starting tomorrow, type of thing.
Yeah, it does. I'm definitely excited for it now. You may have noticed in my opening gambit, I tried to get in as much Australian slang as I could. And of course, in the Cheese Room, we have been working really hard to try and educate ourselves on Australian slang, being in mind that our esteemed leader is now Aussie. And we've been releasing a series of shorts going right the way through the alphabet to educate you guys listening and ourselves on Spurs slang, Australian slang. We're currently up to C. So I'll show you our latest video. See if you can educate yourselves on this one.
Could Ange and Spurs be the best union seen on screen since Scott and Charlene? It's a bold call, but we thought it was high time that Spurs spoke Australian. We're up to C and we're keeping it PG, so it's got to be Cobber. Translated, it means your mate. In a sentence, you might say, yeah, Benno came with his Cobber from Sweden. Bloke's a fair dinkum ripper too. Want to hear more? Go find the podcast.
Superb stuff.
There we go, guys. That's C. A and B are on our YouTube shorts, so feel free to go and look them up. C will be on our YouTube shorts after the show. And on Friday, you'll hear D. And I've got to say, D is my personal favourite. And it's a word I'd never heard of before. So keep watching them. We'll keep the Australian slang coming. So let's get into it then. Let's start with the Ange effect, I guess. Ange Postecoglou now has been in the door this week, started training over the weekend. There's been some interesting videos that have come out on YouTube and the club's social media, on Ange talking to the players and some of the training. Sean, I'll start with you as a debut tonight. What have you made? Because for me, I've got overly excited in probably ways I shouldn't when I've seen some of this stuff. Has it been good for you?
It's been massively impressive. I don't really know how to explain. Like, if I was just to see it in and of itself in isolation, I would think it's impressive to see someone come in with the enthusiasm. But when you package that up with the kind of the 180 from where we've come from to what we're going towards, then it gets me to a point where I'm willing to tolerate probably a far more higher degree of anything that comes along, the stumbling blocks that come along the way, just because I was never a massive fan of defensive football. I'm someone, for those of you who do know me, you'll know this. For those of you who don't, maybe I'll lose some of you in the audience straight away. But ultimately, like, I'm someone that prioritizes good football above trophies. For me, I think the trophies come along once in a blue moon anyway, no matter who you are, unless you're Manchester City. But watching good football should be the reason why you support a football club. And it's something that you can distract yourself from the stresses of life. This guy's going to prioritize that. So when I hear him coming in and making the statements that he's made and saying things to like James Maddison, listen, whether you come or not, bro, you're going to be seeing a whole different version of Tottenham. Get on board it on, but I'm paraphrasing. But ultimately, that stuff gets me excited. It wakes me up in the morning, and I cannot wait for the season to start. That said, I think that there's so much change going on at Tottenham right now. The players that we do want to stay are having to learn an entirely new version of football that they haven't played before at Tottenham. There's going to be loads, maybe 5, 6 new players coming into the team, into the squad. They're going to have to learn the chemistry with these players. Everyone's going to have to learn the manager. There's so much change going on. And with Postecoglou specifically, everywhere he's gone, it's been a stuttering start. So I don't expect it to be smooth sailing. I think it's going to have a lot of volatility as we get through the early stages. I think we're going to grow and build and get better as we go along. But look, I'm super excited about the guy. I think everything he brings in is high energy and things I want to see. But at the same time, I'm going to tolerate the stumbling blocks and the hurdles along the way. And there's going to be many, especially in the first 4 or 5 months of the season.
Yeah. Sash, how's it been for you watching Ange sort of start? And does he have, what Sean's discussing there, talking about that? Were you given that patience and time that perhaps he needs, and accept that there is going to be ups and downs in that opening period?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, I hadn't heard of the chap quite, like quite a lot of the fans, possibly. And for me, it was a case. This was the first real time that I got that instant connection with our new manager, and what he was about and what he's trying to do and what he wants to do at Spurs. And do you know what? It seems like he's going to be one of those managers who hasn't got that big ego that surrounds him already, and he's coming in to play the Spurs way of football, and I think that's definitely going to appeal to a lot of fans. So I think that's a key thing, and for me, it's great because it's refreshing that we've got a manager that appears to be approachable, but he's also going to be a hard taskmaster as well, and I think that's really, really important. And it's great because we've got a couple of signings already in, which is fantastic, and it's players that it looks like players that he wants. It's the type of players that he wants for his brand of football, which is important for all of us. But yeah, definitely patience. I think this is, I think as a Spurs fan who's seen us, sort of sit mid-table for years and years and years, it's one of those where when we sat mid-table and we played really, really attractive football, it was great going to matches. That it was so much better, even though we'd have a loss now and again. Fine, but we played good football. We played decent football. We played Spurs football, and that's what we want. Everybody wants to be back. Well, not everyone, but most people want to see back at the lane and a few trophies to go with it. Great.
Yeah, Gibbo, you've always been outspoken, correctly so, on the need for Spurs to just get back to playing attractive football and not to have that turgid rubbish that has been dished up under the last sort of 2 or 3 regimes. How are you feeling about the whole Ange thing at the moment and the direction that the club's seemingly going into?
Mate, I'm just excited for change. All the things the guys below us spoke about. You know, even if it's going to be a rocky start and stuff like that, I'm even excited to see how we get past that, mate. I'm just done with dull football and just the attitude of the Contes and the Mourinhos, and obviously Nuno weren't there for long enough. But I'm just done with all that, mate. I support Spurs. When I watch football, I want to enjoy it, and I think that's what this guy's going to bring. I think I've seen in the comments here that there's a quiet assurance about the guy. He sort of, he just talks well. He talks about we. A few weeks ago when he first came in, you had like a swell of people who were sort of against it. Oh, we're going for the cheaper option or whatever. But we're sort of, the fan base is sort of coming back together a little bit, and that's partly obviously because we've got him in and people have looked into him a bit more. And I'm just looking forward to it, mate. I mean, some of the things the guy, he had me when he shouted, "Stop passing back" on that video. That was it, mate. I was sold, mate. I've just seen enough of what we've seen for the past few years. For me, just it hasn't been enjoyable, and I just think he's going to come in, and we'll get onto outs later. But I think it's a case of, if you don't want to be at Spurs and we can move you on for the right money, you've got to be in, or we'll move you on, stuff like that, and that's what we need to be, mate. It's just for too long it's just been depressing, and I'm going to say my buzzword, turgid. It's just been like that for too long, mate. And I was excited for change before the guy come in, but listening to him and thinking of the football he's going to play and all the stuff the guys below said, mate, I'm excited for change, mate. I can't wait. Yeah. I can't wait for the Australian tour. I can't wait to see how these players fit in. I like the fact that he said when he spoke to Vicario and Maddison, he got the impression that they wanted to come to the club, and that was a big thing. So you get the impression that if he speaks to someone who they're trying to bring in and they're not really, they just come in because it's Tottenham and they're not really up for the challenge, that he'll sort of go, nah, we'll move on from that target. That's great. That's what we want. That's what we've been after for ages, and that's what we're desperate for as a club. We need to start uniting the fan base and uniting everybody in the in the Tottenham family, and I think Ange could be the guy to do it. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. Is Ange that manager that can finally unite that fan base that's been broken for what seems an eternity now, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think he is. Look, listen, as I said earlier, I think there's going to be massive stumbling blocks, and I think that there's going to be the factions of the fan base that will have an intolerance to the process. I think that's just life. Unfortunately, it's not just Tottenham fans; it's people generally. Blame it on Amazon delivery, blame it on Netflix, whatever. Blame it on the people that can't wait for anything to happen immediately. But I think there's going to be those elements, and that's why I would implore everybody who participates in the online community, who seems to spend more of their time to sort of lean on each other to kind of make sure that we're all as patient as we can be. However, that said, I think as a manager, he's the perfect guy. He reminds me of, a little bit of Redknapp, a little bit of Martin Jol. There's that side to the personality that I think Tottenham fans have missed for a long time. I'd even say further back than before Pochettino. Personally, Pochettino was the first person to get us to the to the kind of promised land. And he was a likable manager, but I think you have to go a little bit further back for the real personality that was in the kind of the press conferences that would constantly make you want to watch. And that was, for me, most recently, Harry Redknapp. This guy, I think, has that sort of side of the game in spades. Certainly, Jose had it for a different reason, but Conte never did. And if you were to ask most Tottenham fans, even the Tottenham fans that are, on the kind of Levy outs, that side of the kind of whatever the spectrum we're talking about, who demand trophies, and the gap in trophies is the reason why they're so annoyed with what we're seeing at the club. If you were to ask 99% of Tottenham fans who was your favourite manager or what was the version of Tottenham that you loved the most in recent years, you're not going to hear the words Juan de Ramos ball, and you're not going to hear the words George Graham ball, who are the last two managers that delivered a trophy. The names you're going to hear is Martin Jol, Harry Redknapp, or Pochettino, neither of which delivered success, but all of which delivered great football and made us believe again. And I think this guy, whether or not he delivers us success, is going to be the next manager that delivers us football that we enjoy watching and that we can get behind and believe again. And so I cannot wait for him to start. I said it 3 times. I'm not going to mention it again, but there is going to be massive hiccups along the way, especially in the early months. And I want everyone to be patient and let us get through it together.
Even as far back as Pleat, really. I mean, I don't know if that's a bit. I don't know how old you guys are, but like David Pleat in '87, we never won anything. We had a great team. Should have won more. You know, we were in the FA Cup final. We blew a league. You know, we had a chance at the league, but that was brilliant football. We didn't win anything, but people look back on that with fond memories.
Yeah, exactly. I think I think people overlook. But most people, it's been so long since we had a trophy. It's unacceptable. Okay, I understand that. I do understand that elite sport is about winning, but ultimately, for you to a player, it should be about winning. The bare minimum, or the fundamental baseline, the benchmark, whatever you want to call it, that you should be looking for as a fan of football is to enjoy the experience of your team that you bleed navy blue and white for, is to play good, attractive football. And this guy, I think, is the first guy in 5 years that can deliver that. And there'll be moments that will be very distressing for sure. There's going to be moments where we're going to get turned over in the early stages, but bear with it, believe in the process, because there'll be times when we deliver football that will make your heart sing. And that hasn't happened since Pochettino. So yeah. I can't wait for it.
I think, though, Sean, it's fair to say, isn't it, that was the same under the Poch regime, wasn't it? In the early days, it wasn't all plain sailing, was it, for Poch? In fact, I remember there's calls for him to go, wasn't there, very early on?
Yeah. So yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, everything, every new moon takes time to rise, and you know, and I think that's, like I say, I mean, to me, it's just a case of asking people for patience. There will be times when. And I think that we've got a very difficult start to the season. I could easily foresee a scenario where we get turned over at Brentford. We've never beaten Brentford away in the time they've been in the Premier League, and then you've got Man United at home next. Right? There's a not insignificant probability that we could be 0 points from 6. And I'm a little bit concerned around what happens in that scenario. But I would just ask everyone, you know, relax, allow this one to play out, give it more time than you would otherwise feel naturally inclined to do, because if we can see through the storm whilst everyone is figuring out how to play Ange ball. And Ange himself has said there's that moment, it takes time, like the penny drops, but it doesn't drop immediately. It takes however long it takes. And if it does, then I think Tottenham fans will be well rewarded and compensated for the patience.
And I'll just say this. I know you can come on obviously Sash can answer this. It won't be the club or Ange that panics, mate. It'll be social media that has a meltdown. It won't be the players or Ange or the people who are living it, mate. It'll be the fallout in the like burn the whole thing down will be on socials, mate. So it's that you got to really try and avoid or switch off for a few days or whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Twitter's a very small view of the Spurs fan base, and I think in some cases it can be quite an extreme view. I think in the main, in the ground, you don't hear necessarily the same level of vocalization of the views that you may hear on Twitter. I think it's fair to say. Sash, would you agree with that?
No, definitely. Yeah, I think so. You know, there's been lots of different chants going on over the last few months about different things, about whether it's Levy in out or ENIC in out, etc. And you know, even the cries for having Poch back. But Joe, it's a fresh new start. I think that's what it is right now, and I think all of us as a Spurs fan base just need to join together again and just unite. And hopefully, the football will do the talking on the pitch, and therefore everybody in the stands and at home are going to feel much better, and that's going to bring us back together. Because when we're winning or playing better football, I think we all just seem a lot more happier and united, really.
Yeah. Here. All right, then. So Ange Ball's here, and it looks like it's here to stay, supporting in the efforts. The club's been busy. As I said in the beginning, it's for Spurs. It feels like it's a really busy time. Vicario, the goalkeeper, Maddison are both in. It looks like it's pretty much done. Manar Solomon of Shakhtar Donetsk on loan at Fulham last season looks like he will be confirmed this week. Gibbo, what's your take on Solomon as a signing?
Mate, I think I've obviously seen little bits of him playing for Fulham. He looked okay, but I think it's a sort of signing. He's not going to be, well, I wouldn't have thought he'd be first choice, but he's a free, replacing Lucas, maybe Danjuma. It'll probably fulfill that type of role that they did. Like I said, he's on a free. So if it doesn't really work out, and this isn't me having a dig at the board or anyone there, but they'll be able to move him on and get some money back on him, won't they? So, it's, I think I'm pinching HG's line here, but I think it's like low risk, high reward. So, it's not a position where we're desperate to get players in the wide areas. So, yeah, it's probably a little bit of an opportunistic sign-in. And we'll just see how it goes. I don't think it's a bad sign-in. I don't think it's a great sign-in. But hopefully he'll come in and he can have impact in sort of like off the bench or like League Cup games or early FA Cup games. And who knows, he might really push on at Spurs. Because he looks like he's quick. He can beat a man. Looks like he can strike the ball from outside the area. So, I think it's just one of those. We've just sort of got to go with it and see what we can get out of him.
Do you think, Sean, that if he was 20 or 30 million, we'll be buying him?
No, I don't think we'd be buying him if he was 20 or 30 million. If we did, I would be underwhelmed. That said, I think it does I agree with Gibbo. I think it makes a lot of economical sense. I think, like 23 years old. He's a very good player on paper. Tricky. He plays really well for Israel. He did very well for Shakhtar Donetsk. He kept Mudryk out of the team, who ended up going to Chelsea for, a fortune. My concern with him is not so much within the level that he possesses. I think he does possess a very high level. It's with his predictability. I think that there's a bit of a common theme with some of the players that Tottenham have got at the moment, especially in the inside forwards. I think Sonny became very predictable with his desire to always pull in on the right-hand side and try and do, the inverted forward with the right foot into the top. He's far more successful on a minutes per played versus goals to shot ratio when he inverts onto the left side. I think Decky had a really successful first 6 months at Tottenham. I know this season that's just finished was very complicated with injuries and recovering from hamstrings that he was probably rushed to recovery from. But even when he does play, he does the same thing all the time. Tricky and smart, intelligent fullbacks or wingbacks will very quickly clock on to players that utilize the same tactic all the time. Decky does it. He puts his shoulder out, uses his strength, and wants to pull in on the left. Sonny was doing it for a while. And from what I've seen of Manuel Solomon, he scored 4 goals in 500 minutes for Fulham. No one knew who he was coming from Shakhtar Donetsk. He looks like whilst he does have 2 feet, he incredibly overcompensates on the one side. He always wants to do the same thing. To me, the mark of a really intelligent player and a good player is someone who is adaptable and unpredictable. I think he will get found out very quickly if he does the same thing every single game. In terms of minutes being played, I don't think there'll be a struggle. I think that Postecoglou has a tactic where he likes to swap the front three because he asks so much of them in the off-the-ball pressing that they will exhaust themselves. So you will see situations where all 3 of the front 3 are replaced in the second half for many games. I've got no issues with Solomon as a signing. My concern with him is whether or not he will become predictable with what he does. Smart right backs will just step on the inside and show him down the wing. And if he doesn't want to take the ball on his left foot, then we've got a player that's going to run into brick walls quite a lot. That's my concern. But on a free transfer, it makes a lot of sense on paper.
Yeah, economically, definitely. Sash, there's been talk, I've read an article and seen a bit on various social media that this signing's a club signing as opposed to an Ange signing. What do you make to that? I mean, isn't every signing a club signing ultimately?
Ultimately, yes, but I think, do you know what, the manager is the person who's going to want the player at the end of the day, and who's got to make it work. So I can't. This is the thing I really, really hate, and I see it on Twitter and other social media channels, is that people just believe that the club makes the final call, the final signing. I think the club has the money for the player or players, and it's up to the managers, the scouts, etc., to go and buy those players. So for me, I think this one was a smart buy. They might, scout whoever has found him and thought free transfer, great, let's do it. And based on what Gibbo said earlier, it makes sense. It's a no-brainer for me. Having that player in. And if he develops and goes on to do brilliantly, then that's great for us, and it's going to make great economical sense later on if he wants to move on as well. So, that's what I really, really struggle with, all these club signings. I don't believe there is a full just a club or a board signing. I think it's about what's happening on the pitch and what players we need in our squad. That's what I fundamentally believe, but I know lots of people will disagree with that.
Yeah, definitely. The other signing that the club have done is a non-story really. Pedro Porro's £40 million obligations now being activated as expected, so he's now going to be a part of our squad for next season. We won't talk too much about that because we've talked about it in other pods. One thing I did want to get the view of, and I'll come to you, Gibbo, if I may. Romano's published something from the Barcelona president, who said today that he expects us to reach agreement with Barcelona for Longley, which you would expect, well, I interpret as means we're in negotiations for Longley. How does that sit with you?
Well, I don't think he was as bad as people made out, and I don't think he was as good as some people made out. I think he's very average centre-back, lacks pace for me. From what I think the way we're going to play, I don't think you can have some, because he is slow. I think Spurs are probably just, if they can get him for literally next to nothing, I think that's what they'll try and do, because Barcelona need to get rid of some wages. But I mean, we're talking about Van de Ven, we'll talk about him later, and Tapsoba. I don't even know that much about them, but they're younger, more agile, more athletic. Because, that's one thing that, I mean, Langley was good on the ball. I thought he was pretty decent at bringing it out. But, if we can, let's move on. Let's get fresh blood. And if we bring him in and he costs nothing, and we can get Tapsoba and Van de Ven and bring Langley in, ship out some of the other dead wood from the centre-backs who have been there too long, I'll be quite happy about that. But I'm not keen on him coming in with one of the guys we're mentioned with. I'd rather we go for two of our top centre-back targets rather than sort of just going back for him because we can get him for cheap. I don't think we do. I don't think we need to go down that road. But like I said, if we can bring him in as a third centre-back option, we get him for next to nothing, then decent squad player.
Yeah,
for me.
Who in that scenario? Who leaves then, Gibbo, for him? Who's he replacing in the squad? If we're bringing in two additional potentially, and him, who goes?
Well, you're looking at Sanchez going, aren't you? I'm just thinking of I don't really know how the homegrown stuff works, but if you bring say in the Dutch guy for Sanchez, like for like. I suppose Langley was a non-homegrown, so the other guy will come in for. You're looking at Sanchez. I don't think Dyer's going to move on now. I think you're looking at Sanchez going, Tanganga going, aren't you? So maybe someone like Reguilon. I know Reguilon's like a left back, but he's he's a defender and he's non-homegrown, so maybe he could come in there because we've got quite a bit of cover in those sorts of roles, haven't we? So, but I'd rather have sort of like Romero, Tapsoba, Van der Ven, and Lenglet, and then Dyer as a back five going into into those two positions. That's better than the five we sort of had last season. So, yeah. But like I said, I don't want him to be one of the first choices for us to bring in.
Yeah, Sean, I think I'm quoting you here, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think I remember you saying that your utopia is 3 centre halves coming in an ideal one, but probably not realistic. It would, in that 3, would you have included Longley?
No, no. He's another one that makes sense economically, but not. It's like a Daniel Levy dream world of trying to make sense of it, because he was probably arguably, some people might disagree with this, but I think arguably, at least for the first 7 months of the season, I think he was statistically and probably on the eye test, the best centre half for the Conte system. But I don't think he suits the Postecoglou system for 80% of what he's capable of doing. Like you have to remember, the high line, high press defense, the centre backs need to have all the things that a normal centre-back needs to have, plus they need to have the propensity to be able to get the ball, have the confidence to break the line. If they can break the line themselves, then they naturally draw midfielders from the opposition. That then allows space to creates space that opens up, but then you can pass, do 1-2s, get it into the feet of Maddison, and then Bob's your uncle, you've got opportunities. You can be the locksmith. It's a very integral and an essential part of the art of being a highline centre-back. But that's 20% of the game. If you're Manchester City, who can naturally control the ball 75% of the time, that's fine. But Tottenham are not Manchester City. We are not going to have 75% possession. When we're trying to do this creative 1-2 touch football, we're going to make mistakes. And when you do, you're going to lose the ball in transition. The ball's going to get put over the top. In those scenarios, you need defenders that are 3 things, essentially. Very good in the air, very quick turning circles, and incredibly fast. And Longley has none of those things. He's not. Unfortunately, I was very much in favour of Longley coming into the Conte system, but I'm not a fan of him coming in here, even at 5 million or 7 million, or even on a free transfer. I don't think it makes sense. Obviously we're linked with Tapsoba, but Tapsoba goes away for 8 games, maybe to the African Cup of Nations in January. Van der Ven, a wonderful player, links out tonight that we're going to sign him and that we're getting close for 30 million euros. A wonderful player. He's got pace. I think he's the fastest ever centre-back that's ever been clocked in the Bundesliga, which is beautiful. But he's raw. He's not great in the air either. He's probably looks more like a left-back than a left-sided centre-back. All of the things you need on the ball, Longley has. So do these other guys. Off the ball, Longley doesn't have any of them. And if you have Longley in the team, other players, other opposition will target. They will just lump the ball over his head into the background. And if Udogie is the left back who has been given the role when we have the ball of getting up and joining the 5 up top, and then the transition happens, which will happen because we're not that great, Tottenham, technically, then teams will just lump the ball down their right, down our left-hand side. And then Longley is the guy who's responsible for getting back, and he doesn't have the pace. So for me, I'm very much not interested in this signing. I would much rather Eric Dyer. If we had to pick one of Dyer or Longley to stay, I personally would probably pick Eric Dyer. But that, again, it's like pick your poison. Neither of them are great. Neither of them are like, I don't want either of them. But to your point, Craig, you mentioned my dream world. Yeah, you find the money for Van der Ven, Tapsoba, and then you go and get Tosin Adarabioyo or Victor Nelson. Or if you want to go cheaper, you go to Stuttgart and you get Hiroki Ito, the Japanese centre-back, who I think is going to be an absolute monster. I think there's other options out there. I don't see the need to go cheap now. Now that we've got Manuel Solomon on a free, I don't see the need to go cheap twice. Because if you go cheap, you pay twice anyway. So, for me, Longley did well last season to a degree, but he's not the right fit for this team.
Mm. You mentioned there the 2 Tapsoba and Van der Ven, Sash, who we are being heavily linked with. It's also been reported again by Romano that we're only in for one of those 2, which means that probably some of those others players we've talked about will stay. Out of the two, where would you rather Tottenham head? Who would you rather have in the back line next season?
I was looking a bit on both of them today, and I think, John, if we have Van der Ven in, then I feel like we need to have somebody who's more established in there with him, and that's so. It depends on what we're going to do with Lenglet. If he doesn't come, then I think we need a more established centre back to partner up with Van der Ven. Lots of people are talking about how he's absolutely amazing in the Bundesliga, and he's got the pace and the right capabilities in terms of how we want to play Ange ball. I think the key thing is, if we go with him because of the pace, then we need that backup. If not, then I'd probably say then Tapsoba would probably be more suited right now with the players that we'd potentially be left with. But equally, I'm thinking obviously Dyer needs to drop out, but we've got Emerson Royale who can play play right centre back. I think somebody mentioned that on here as well. And then we've got Spence on the right. So you've got that balance already there with and Porro as well. So we've already got that balance potentially. It'd be great to have two decent centre backs in. I think it'd be fantastic, but can't see it happening. Yes.
And Sean, Romero's going to be the first choice centre back, isn't he? If he's fit, his head's in the right place. Romero's obviously in, so whoever we bring in is to play next to him, and possibly instead of when he picks up an injury or when Argentina have got a game coming up,
or he's serving a ban for another red card.
Yeah.
I want Romero to have competition. Sorry, I think Romero. Everyone waxes lyrical that this guy is, this Rolls Royce of a centre back. He's the best that we have, but I've not seen any Rolls Royce out of him yet. I think he's a very, very talented player with a high ceiling. I think his disciplinary record, to Sash's point, is a major concern. I also think his dedication and commitment to the Tottenham cause is also a bit of a concern. That's just a personal take. I don't think he necessarily really cares too much about Tottenham's plight when Argentinian squad selection is coming up. But listen, I'm happy with him to be our number one, but I would love it to have someone chomping at the bit to take his place. If you sign a player like Edmund Tapsoba, who technically is a left-sided centre-back but plays with the right foot, then if Romero gets injured or Romero drops the ball or is suspended, all those things are going to happen. Then you can bring Tapsoba in. Or if you go to Fulham and you go and get a cheeky deal for a player that's out of contract in a year's time in Tosin Adarabioyo, then I think you've got I think people are sleeping on how good he is. I also think people are sleeping on the guy Victor Nelson from Galatasaray. I think he's a very, very talented player as well. And there's not just those two. There's plenty of centre-backs out there that don't cost the world that you could get for less than 15 million quid, and that's not just on the right, but on the left as well. I mentioned Hiroki Ito. I think he is potentially the next Kim Min-jae from the Asian kind of origin of centre-backs. He's super fast, very tall, very talented. And I think that Tottenham don't need to go and get a Clement Longley on a free transfer, because you can get far better with far more technical attributes, far better physical attributes, and it might cost you only 10 million quid, which, in the grand scheme of things, isn't a lot of money for a really, really good player.
I'm with you, mate. We don't need to go back down that route. We've been there, haven't we? We're trying to move on now. I think the guy from Fulham would be a great signing. But yeah, and to add to your point, mate, competition should enhance performance. If you're a top player, you don't competition doesn't stifle you. It should make you play better. It should keep you on your toes. And and I don't think we've had that for long enough at Spurs either. I think there's too many players who've been too comfortable for too long. And quite a few of them are centre-backs. So, get 3 I'm with you, mate. Get 3 decent ones in. We're getting Solomon on a free. I think the money's there for the money we're talking about for those players. I think the money's there. I don't see us
getting 3 in. Dream world scenario, I think you could do it without breaking the bank. It's just a case of moving these players on that we have.
That's the problem.
Are you going to be able to realistically find homes for Joe Rodon, for Sanchez, and for Dyer
forgot about
in the next month without... We haven't got a director of football, so who's making the phone calls? I don't know.
Forgot about Joe Rodon.
Yeah, no, and that's the biggest thing, isn't it, with this centre back position? Is we can talk about bringing 3 in, but we've got 3 or 4 we've got to get out
Got to move
first,
some
or
on.
not to say first, but they're going to have to go. We can bring the players in, but we need to move people on. That's how we do that. Just a quick question then for everyone, to put you on the spot a bit. If you was a betting man based on who we've been linked with and who we've got in the squad now, what would be your back 4 starting Brentford first game of the season? So you could, who do you want to go for? So I'll start with you, Gibbo.
Mate.
Oh, man, lost Gibbo.
Waking
Go
up.
to you. Oh,
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah, you're back. You're back, Gibbo. Carry on.
Am I back? Am I back in the... Yeah. Romero, definitely. I think he'll start. I've got a feeling tap sober, because I know this stuff about Van der Ven come out, but I think they'll probably agree sort of like personal terms and all that stuff for both, and then go with one. So I'm going to say him. Left back. I think Ben Davies will start left back. Can't get rid of a bloke. And right back. I'm going to say, even though he was absolutely doggo at Newcastle, I'm going to go Porro.
Okay, good. Where should I go? Sash, you're next.
So I think right back we'd probably go with Emerson.
Okay.
Romero, and then either one of the two. I don't think we'll get both, but either Tapsoba or Van der Ven, and then I'll actually start with Udogie on the left.
Okay. And then Sean, where are you going?
Is this like realistic starting 4?
Realistic based on what you think we could get in and what we've got. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that I agree. I think Emerson will be right back. I think Pedro Porro won't have proven his worth enough, or won't have adapted enough for it. I think Romero, and then I'm going to go Van der Ven. I just think that the noise about Van der Ven is heating up so much over the last 4 or 5 hours that looks like I think that's done. I'm going to be confident enough to put my neck on the line and say that one's done. I still think that I'd love it if Tapsoba comes in as well, but let's bring in Van der Ven there next to Romero, and then on the left of that, I'm going to say if we're playing Emerson, then I think you can make room for Udogie. So Emerson,
get Porro in there as well. Get Porro and Udogie as the wing backs.
It's too crazy. That's too crazy.
Let's go crazy.
You can only go crazy. Like you can only go that kind of real crazy if you have a 6 that is an absolute monster. And listen, I think that people are sleeping on the 6. I think we need someone like I love Basuma. I'm a massive fan. I'm treating him as a new signing, but I see Basuma more as an 8 than a 6. I think Tottenham need, if there's money left over, or if there's a bigger picture vision here, Tottenham needs to go and find a proper 6 to step in front of that back 4.
I think that could be done. I think that could be done if they move Højbjerg on. I think that's how they could. My
dream world, Gibbo, is you buy Palhinha from Fulham.
Very good.
Let's value Palhinha at 65. You give them Højbjerg. Højbjerg doesn't have to move home. Højbjerg can fit into the Fulham system next to Harrison Reed. That makes a hell of a lot of sense in my mind. That the Fulham don't need to change up too much. They get a very good replacement. Tottenham can pay 30 million plus Højbjerg, or 40 million, whatever. Figure it out. Some cash amount plus Højbjerg, and then we've got João Palhinha, and Tottenham then are cooking with gas. If that guy comes in to sit in the 6, that then, to your point, Gibbo, gives you the ability to play with very aggressive fullbacks on both sides.
Yeah. Get him in. Get him flying up the pitch.
Yeah, the 6 is, you make sure you make a good point about the 6. I think it has been not talked about as much as perhaps it should be. I do wonder whether it's a priority for this window, whether that's something maybe that will come in January or next summer potentially. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it? Imagine if we did get that over the line this summer as well. That would be immense. Just quickly then, we've talked about the ins, outs. So Harry Winks went for an unbelievable £10 million. I tweeted that Leicester had been levied. Sash, was you surprised at that transfer fee we got for Winks?
Yeah, to be honest, I know he's had a few injuries recently and stuff, but you know what? That's what he's worth to Leicester. Let's take the 10 million and spend it wisely.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we was going to rip up his contract, Gibbo, and just get rid of him.
Who, Winksy?
Yeah, Winksy. Yeah, year left.
Look, mate. Yeah, I thought we might end up doing that. It's great business, really. It's not his fault. He's not really been good enough to push on with Spurs. You know, he was decent. He was okay when he first come in. He's just not pushed on. The guy's got a decent move. I think he'll do really well at Leicester, to be fair, in the Championship. He's probably slightly better than a Championship player. So hopefully, well, I don't care, actually. But, you know, they'll probably look to bounce straight back Leicester. And I think he'll have a decent career there, mate. You know, like, I can't send him to Norwich. Now he's gone to Leicester, can I, Craig? I like to send all our average players to Norwich. But, Leicester, decent move for him. Great move for us. All the best to him. Thanks for your service when you played for us. But, you know, he's moved on, and it's, more importantly, decent business for Spurs.
I mean, we do have to nod our cap to the fact that he has been with us since, 5 years old, however old it was, 6 years old, however old. And he's a youth product. He's come through. He hasn't been sensational in the Spurs shirt at all by any stretch, but he's been there, hasn't he? You know, for all that time. And he definitely, for me anyway, he goes with my biggest.
He's contributed in his early period. He's contributed more than a lot of players recently have contributed. I'm not saying he's a great player, but he did contribute in fairly decent games for Spurs than some of the players we've had more recently. So, but like I said, he's gone now, so we move on, don't we?
Yeah, we certainly do. Who else then, Sean, do you think will be getting the exit door before the start of the season? Who do you think leaves?
Oh, I mean, I think there's lots that are going to go. I take your point that everyone would have taken the idea of Harry Winks' contract being torn up, and Daniel Levy gets a hell of a lot of criticism and critique, and you know, whatever, fair or unfair criticism for his style of negotiations, whatever. Not for a conversation for another night, but on the Harry Winks deal, I think he's done absolutely wonderfully there to be able to get that for 10 million. I think that Sanchez is going to leave. I saw tonight rumours that he might be going to Spain to replace Pau Torres. That there's interest there. I think Davinson Sanchez is actually he's a better player than we've seen at Tottenham. I think that the style in other countries will fit his system. I think he will, just like I think Harry Winks will go and do a very, very good job at Leicester and will be instrumental in bringing them back up. I think that Davinson Sanchez would do very well in a couple of leagues. I think he would do well in Italy, and I think he'd do very well in Spain. So I will wish him well. I didn't like the fact that he got booed. I thought that was a little bit unpleasant. But yeah, not good enough for Tottenham, and ultimately a failed signing, an expensive failure. I think that we will also see Perisic leave the club this summer. I think we'll see Hugo Lloris leave the club this summer. I'd like to see Eric Dyer leave the club. I'm not sure where he will go or where that's going to come, but I think him staying or going depends on, you know, bigger decisions around the centre-back situation we spoke about earlier. And I wouldn't mind, if I'm entirely honest, as brutal as this sounds, I wouldn't mind seeing space being opened up. If Højbjerg does leave the club and go somewhere, if it means that we can bring in a proper six, like an Amrabat, like a Frank Kessie, a Locatelli from Juve, or you know, God willing, a João Palhinha, then I'd be willing to see maybe two spaces being freed up in the six. I wouldn't mind seeing Ollie Skip going out, and then Højbjerg as well. So I think we will see five or six players leave Tottenham from the first team squad this summer. There's lots of work to do there.
There is lots of work. Sash, from the players that have returned from being on loan last season, so Lo Celso, Ndombele, who else has been on loan, remind me, Rodon, etc., and all the others we can name, 6 or 7 of them. Is there any of them that you see making a return to the first team squad for next season?
Personally, I hope not. But that's the truth of it for me. I mean, Ndombele for me shouldn't be putting on a Spurs shirt ever again. Simple as that. Just his way of, he's not a Spurs player. He's not wearing the badge for us. Lo Celso, yeah, he's had a good time away, but for me, do you know what? We've got to think about the players who are coming back from injury as well. We've not mentioned Bentancur. I mean, as soon as he comes back, I mean that's another good player that we've got in the midfield, and alongside with Basuma. I think what we're really missing, and I think you guys alluded to it earlier, is we never ever replace Dembele. I mean, if we had a Dembele style of player playing in that middle now with the way that we want to play with those fast-paced defenders as well, I think would be an unstoppable team. So I think that's the type of player that I think we need to sort of work through, and we haven't got that. Højbjerg, he's had some good games, but to be honest, average player. And Skippy, he's still progressing. I think he's not the finished article yet, and that's the thing. I think he could be a great Tottenham player, but I think just not right now. And just seeing that Pete's just put a comment on about Ndombele being very frustrating. Well, that's the thing. He's got the talent. It's just his work ethic is just appalling. It's even seeing him getting out of the cab a couple of days ago for the first day, he was sort of like he was ready to go. He looked like he was going off to the beach to find his sun lounger, or something like that. That was the attitude that you get, and you think, well, hold on a minute, mate, you should be gearing up. You should be really happy that you're back, a type of thing. But no, he's not happy because he's going to be on the treadmill for like 5 hours, trying to sort himself out. That's the problem. So yes, we've got a lot of deadwoods. We need a massive overhaul, and I think we just need to start fresh. And I think we need to change that squad up as quick as possible. Get rid of the big egos. Get rid of those big names that have been there, great servants for us over the years. But it's time for a change.
It's been mentioned, hasn't it, in the press? Alistair Gold wrote that Ange Postecoglou wanted to have a good look at Ndombele. Sean, do you see a world where there's a chance he could come back into the fold, or do you think one look from Ange and he'll be out?
I'd be very surprised, if I'm honest. I don't think Ange suffers fools. I would be surprised. I think that Ndombele might be the sort of guy who wants to turn up and he'll put in a couple of days of hard graft. But I think Ange seems like the sort of guy who can see through the nonsense. Listen, whatever decision Ange makes about Ndombele, I'll back it. If Ange thinks that he is turned a corner, if he's found a way to speak to this bundle of talent, bundle of potential, but ultimately none of the work rate. If he's found a mechanism to get through to this guy, like none of the other managers that we've had have, and decides to keep him amongst the team, I'll get behind it and I will support it, and I'll actually be excited about it because I weirdly trust Ange Postecoglou more than some of my mates, and I don't know the guy, but I just feel like he speaks in a way that makes you want to believe. And yeah, look, like I say, I think that Ange won't see that. I think Ange will make a decision to move him on or try and find a new home for him. But if Ange turns around and says, "Nah, this is my guy. He's going to be the guy," I'll get behind it. I will, and I'll hope that it works out for the best. I'd be surprised though.
We're not losing anything, are we, Craig? We're not. You know what I mean? I've got no real feeling about it because we're not losing anything. If he comes in and he fulfills his the potential, the player we thought we had, we can only gain from it. If he goes out again, what is there to lose? Pretty. Yeah.
I just think
worked out, has it?
I know it hasn't worked out, and you can't keep hoping that something's going to happen. I just think back to how excited I think we all were when we signed in Ndombele, like the expectation that come with him, and it's just weird. There's a footballer in there, and like I say, whether he's just had a bit of a Dele Alli thing, maybe he's just lost the love of the game and he's not interested anymore. I don't really know, but if anyone can maybe get a tune out of him, I like to think Ange Postecoglou could be that one. Who knows?
Really, mate, if we look back, didn't he have one good season at Lyon? He had some really good games in the Champions League for him. and like a load of obviously his skills on YouTube, people got seduced by. Is that right? Didn't he? He had a bit of a late career, didn't he, due to his attitude at other clubs? So we've probably really got not what we expected, but I don't think he was any great shakes really, apart from that one season. I'm not 100% sure, mate, but I'm just when you sort of like look back at his career now, I think that is pretty much what he was. And we paid over the odds for him because we were desperate to get someone in to replace Dembele.
Yeah. Before we talk about the big out or the potential out, which has been dominating the chat in Harry Kane, I just want to chat about very quickly. Get Sash your take and Gibbo and Sean on the Parrott and Scarlett conundrum. Where do we think we are with Parrott and Scarlett this summer? What happens to those? Sash, want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Scarlett would have had a better season over at Pompey. He didn't grab a lot of goals. He didn't get a lot of time in the end, and that was really disappointing because he looked great as an academy player, and there was a lot of promise. And the same thing for Parrott. Parrott's gone off, and he's done okay. It's just a case of, is Ange gonna feel that they fit in with him? I think that's the big thing, but it might be time for them to move on and potentially maybe come back one day, possibly. But I think they still need developing, both of them, because I don't think they're ready to sort of step into. Nobody's ready to step into Harry Kane's shoes, but definitely I don't even think as understudies at the moment. I don't think they're really there as a backup.
I mean, Gibbo, Troy Parrott's got to be close to decision time, isn't it, there, for his own career as well?
Yeah, mate. I mean, he scored a lot of goals in the under-21s at the time or whatever level he was at. But over the years, we've had loads of forwards who've scored goals for the younger team, even, from when I first started going. Like, your likes of Lee Barnard and all these sorts of Dixon or whatever his name. We've had loads of these players who are going to be the next big thing. And very rarely they come through, mate. We've had Kane come through, but at lots of clubs, you don't get lots and lots of players. You get these guys who score loads of goals in the youth teams, and they're going to be the next big thing, and they very rarely make it. So there's a good chance that Parrott and Scarlett won't. I mean, Scarlett looks, for me, a better prospect than Parrott. I'm with you, mate. I think going to Preston, I don't know if that was a really great move for Parrott, but I think you're right. I think for his own career as well, you got, like Sash said, he doesn't look anywhere near. Parrott doesn't look anywhere near being a Spurs forward at the minute. So with him, maybe time to. What's he going to get? One more loan move, or does he move somewhere where he's going to play, where he can settle down and maybe forge a career for himself? And then you're just left with Scarlett, who you maybe need to try and nurture a little bit more. But I don't think there's room for both of them at Spurs. That's my own personal opinion.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about the success of their loan moves last season is Kane didn't have the most successful loan moves either, did he? When in his early career at Tottenham, he wasn't. No, but he didn't rip the town up, did he? Wherever he went.
No, but like Kane, mate, is a one-off, isn't? Like I keep saying about other facets around Kane, he's like the anomaly. But players, Man United had that great crop of youth players, but it's very rare you keep getting loads and loads of youth players come through. For every one top youth player you get, 10 or 12 fall by the wayside, mate. So it's, but I just don't see what I've seen of Parrott. I just don't see him being anywhere near even really a Premiership player at the minute, let alone a Spurs player.
Yeah, no, I agree. So what did you say? Parrott sold, Scarlett another loan potentially?
Yeah, a decent loan move for him. What was he, League One last season? Maybe a decent Championship loan or a top League One team.
Norwich?
Yeah, get him out to Norwich, mate. They've got rid of Pookie, haven't they? You can take over from him for a season.
Yeah. The big one to talk about then is Kane. He's dominated the chat tonight. There's been lots of talk on social media. The skepticism amongst us would say all the spending we're doing is spending the Kane money because he's been sold to Bayern for 100 million. Sean, where are you at with the Harry Kane? Is he going? Is he staying?
It's a really tough one. I don't know, obviously. I personally believe he's not leaving. I think he will stay at Tottenham this season. And I think that the reason why is not because he wants to. I think that he would possibly open his mind. I think he'd rather stay in the Premier League, but I think that door has been shut for at least for a year. And I think that he might even be tempted to go to Bayern Munich. But I think that Bayern Munich haven't got enough money to be able to tempt Daniel Levy. And I think Daniel Levy believes that he'll be able to figure out a way in the next 12 months to convince Harry Kane to stay. And I think it's a game of chicken or whatever you want to call it. It's a very, very risky strategy on Daniel Levy's part, because if he does leave for free next summer, then I think Daniel Levy would be guilty of gross negligence for allowing £100 million asset to leave for free for the purposes of not wanting to sell him now. Look, listen, I'm someone that defends Daniel Levy a lot. I see different perspectives. I look into different angles as to why to justify things, and I spend a lot of my time debating against Levy out narratives. Not to get into it, but the reality is, in my mind, that Daniel Levy as a person is someone who sees negotiations as a zero-sum game where someone has to lose and someone has to win. And I don't think that is a very smart tactic when you come to the kind of last chance saloon with regards big player assets. He ultimately is responsible for Tottenham's and Tottenham fans' best intentions and optimistic, most optimistic outcomes. And I think he's dicing a little bit. He's walking too close to the edge of a cliff face when he's just turning down bids out of hand with regards to Harry Kane, unless there's something we don't know. For me personally, I don't think he will leave this summer, but I do think he might leave next summer on a free transfer. And if he does, then Daniel Levy is that's a massive problem. That's a massive problem, and it's going to take a significant shift in outcomes at Tottenham for Harry Kane to find a reason to stay. And with the changing economic environment, with Newcastle doing what they're doing, with Manchester United seemingly likely to be taken over again by a nation state, this idea that we can win a trophy becomes further and further from plausible scenarios. So for me, I think that I'd be okay. I would be okay with Daniel Levy saying 90 million quid. Let the guy go to Bayern Munich. Let him go and win his couple of years of trophies. He can come back to Tottenham to win his Premier League record in a couple of years' time, and everyone can be happy. But if he stays and he leaves in a year's time, I think there'll be a meltdown, and I think Daniel Levy will rightly face the ire of Tottenham fans because he will be negligent in not seeing the wood for the trees a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah. Whichever way he goes, Levy, with this, I don't think he can win in terms of the fan base, can he? Because he'll be criticised if he lets him go for free in the summer, and he'll be criticised if he sells him this year for 90 million or 100 million. So, Gibbo, which way do you see it going?
Mate, I just think we're caught between a rock and a hard place. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes. I just don't know which way it's going to go. But I think he'll come back. I think he'll talk. Sean said it earlier. Postecoglou doesn't suffer fools. I think they'll have the chat. And if it is true, as reported, that he fancies the Bayern move, I think they'll sit down and they'll have that chat. And he'll say, if we get the money that the club want for you, then I'm happy for you to go. Because I don't really think he'll want a player. I think he'll he'll be happy to keep him. But I think he'll want a player who is all in. I'm not sure if Bayern will stump up the money we want, because I think it will need to be closer to 100 million. If you look at Declan Rice, how long's Declan Rice got left on his contract? I know he's younger, but like Kane is
not long. Gibbo, can I ask you a question though? Does the selling point that worked for James, or maybe did or didn't work for James Maddison? Listen, mate, whether you sign or you leave, Tottenham are going to look incredibly different next year. Does that sales spiel work for Harry Kane the way it did for James Maddison?
I I think Kane's just the whole situation with Kane is different to any players because of how important he is to us. I mean, it's like everything I think is saying, there's a contradiction to it, mate, because I think
I agree.
it's just really, really difficult because we've got to replace him as well.
Yeah.
Now, people will say, oh, well, we bought Richarlison, but Richarlison is so far off Kane. It's unbelievable. You can't be able to see him. He's that far back in terms of build-up play, in terms of holding the ball up, in terms of scoring goals, in terms of pure quality. We can't replace Kane. So
at some point you have to, right? Whether it's 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years, at some point Harry Kane will have scored his last goal for Tottenham.
Sean,
right?
We've never been on these shows together, but let me tell you this, mate. I don't have a lot of emotion in football. And once he's gone, I don't want him to go. I want him to stay. I want him to score goals. But if he goes, mate. I support the crest on the shirt. I don't. Players come, players go. Managers come, managers go. Chairman will come and go. You know,
100%,
but what needs to be done if they have that conversation? We do not want to be it's got to be the right amount of money, reasonable amount of money, and it's got to be in a certain time frame because we don't want to be going a week into the season. Because in my opinion, it's no good saying Richarlison's the backup. I think we need to be looking for someone else as well.
100%.
And
I agree with everything you're saying.
So that is that conversation and how Postecoglou decides to push on with that conversation, where he decides to take it and what he decides to do is really important. But I pretty much think if he says, look, I've got an offer from Bayern, I quite fancy it. I've done my stint at Spurs. I think Postecoglou will go, right, if we can facilitate that move, mate, we'll let you go. Does any part of
you guys feel like Harry Kane needs to show his cards a little bit?
He never has, mate. He never has, and he never will.
Well, he showed his cards. He showed his cards last season, didn't he? Was it Man City season before?
2 seasons ago, yeah.
And he eventually, I mean, don't get me wrong, it took him far too long to come out. But he did eventually come out and say, look, this is it, I'm staying. This is the end of it. But
because I think let him go.
Yeah, because we wouldn't let him go. But I think you're right, Sean. For me, I think he needs to come out and say what his intention is one way or the other. If he's going to stay, just say you're going to stay. Get it done. Postecoglou needs everything on his side, doesn't he? He needs everyone pulling behind him. He needs everyone working together. And it's not going to help him having this noise going on. I mean, I'm sure the noise we experience externally to the club is probably different to the noise internally. But if internally there's still uncertainty about whether he stays or goes, it needs to be sorted one way or the other, doesn't it? Quickly.
Sash, he's captain, yeah? He is captain. He will be because Lloris is going. Do you see, if he wants out, and if we're going to agree this to happen, if in this time frame for this amount of money, can you see Postecoglou giving him the armband? Well, we'll give you. You can be captain until you go, or in case there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I think. Look, do you know what? We need a final decision, whatever happens, and we need it sooner rather than later. Because if we do end up selling him near the end of the window, who are we actually going to bring in? What are we actually going to do? Because you've rightly said we haven't got those backup strikers who can play in the same way as he can and deliver us those 30 plus goals every season. I think that's the big worry. But equally, do you know what? Daniel Levy doesn't like running down contracts, does he? He always gets rid of the players just before. So if he gets the money he wants, that he feels is appropriate, then I think if Harry goes, he goes. But we've got to do it now. It's got to be in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, he did say in the Amazon documentary about Ericsson, didn't he? He said a club like Spurs can't be seen to let their big players go for free, and that has stuck with my mind. But I do think, as Gibbo, you've said, Kane is different.
Because it is different. But if they decide he is going to go, then it needs to be done. Yeah. Whatever decision they come to, because the guys are going to be captain. Is what, like I said, going into the season, he's going to be captain of the club.
Yeah,
so Gibbo, you'll love this. So loads of people laugh at me when I say this, but I think Kane will be here until the end of next season, and then he'll sign a new contract. And you watch, he will be our manager at some point. after. I'm living in a fantasy world, and people can laugh at me as much as they want, but that's the way I'm going.
I don't know if you guys agree, but this Bayern Munich, I think the Man City deal's passed him by. He's not going to get to go there. That's guaranteed trophies. Real Madrid with Mbappe, has that passed him? That opportunity passed him by. And then you look at it, even though
it has, yeah.
And even though Newcastle have got lots of money, they're still not in a position where they, as you get old, he sort of really wants to go somewhere where he's probably guaranteed success, doesn't he? Or trophies, if that's what he's after. Because if he's just going for Champions League football, then us keeping him is worth and not having to replace him. We've got just as good a chance of getting, in my mind, Champions League football as maybe Newcastle have, as maybe as Man United have. Liverpool are improving, but it really is.
The only place he's guaranteed a trophy, Gibbo, sorry, mate, is in the Premier League, yeah, but outside of there in the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich.
Yeah, he's guaranteed success there.
I don't know. It
doesn't mean anything, though, does it?
I don't think it means anything. Exactly, 100%. Like, what's a more difficult challenge to win the Carabao Cup with Tottenham, or to win the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich? You make the argument that it's a better reward to win it with Tottenham than it is with Bayern Munich.
I don't think they'll have the money. I agree with the point. I don't think they'll hit the top. They very rarely pay lots and lots of money for players, do they? Bayern Munich.
No, but they got the 50+1 rule, mate, so that they can't really operate outside of the realms of fiscal responsibility. So. And they've just spent a lot of money on Kim Min-jae. They've had to pay 45 million, I think it was, for the release clause from Napoli for Kim Min-jae, and that has to be paid up front. If you're triggering the release clause that is a minimum fee release clause, then there's no reason why the selling club has to have any wiggle room. They haven't got to structure it over 5 years like most transfer deals are done, because it's not a willing transfer. The transfer is only being done because they're forced into it. So I don't think that I'd be very surprised Bayern Munich can spend 45 million quid up front or whatever it is for Kim Min-jae, and then on the same time also go after Bayern Munich, after Harry Kane. So I don't see any scenario where Harry Kane leaves this summer. I really don't. But I do see a scenario where Harry Kane leaves next summer, and that's a problem. It's a problem.
But he is going to go at some point, isn't he? They all leave. They all
go. But if there was a chance to sell him, if Harry Kane has had I mentioned the thing, he hasn't laid his cards out to bear to the public. But if he said to Daniel Levy, look, mate, I want out, bro. Like you've had enough years of my career, and you're not presenting me this plan that we're going to win anything. So I want out. And if Daniel Levy said, thanks for letting me know, but no, not going to happen, then if he does leave on a free transfer next summer, I'm not someone who criticizes Daniel Levy like half the fan base does. I'm really not. But on this one, I think you would have to say Daniel Levy is a little bit negligent on that one.
Yeah. Mate, I said, you're in between a rock and a hard place, because the money if we sell him for 80 million, are we going to get a player in or two players in that could have got more chance of shooting us back towards the Champions League? Do you get what I mean? It literally is whatever way you look at it.
You'd rather have the 80 million to waste than not have it at all.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I hold on to is his comments last season in the interview where he said he wants to be a part of the change at Tottenham, the culture change that needs to happen. I really buy into that, and I think he's going to say. We've had a couple of questions. I just want to quickly pose them, if I may, on Kane, and then we'll close that part of the conversation. How would you all feel if Kane went to Chelsea on a free? Who wants to go
Devastated.
first?
No, it won't happen. Devastated, but that won't happen.
You never see a world that happens, no? Gibbo?
Go on, Sash. What do you think?
No chance.
I don't think he goes to Chelsea, mate.
No, I don't either. And then the other question, this was for you, Sean, but we'll all answer it. If we get top four next season, will Kane stay? Would Kane still go?
It depends on the situation at the time. Like you have to factor in the variables. If Haaland gets bored of Manchester City next summer and wants out and wants to go to Real Madrid, which is entirely plausible. You know, Mbappe decided maybe to go somewhere else, and Benzema's already gone. Like, there's all these kind of variables and tangibles that you have to factor in. But I think that I think that Manchester United this summer will have already made their decision on a striker. They're going to go and get Erasmus Højlund. They'll go and get a Dusan Vlahovic. They'll go and get somebody else this summer. So they might not necessarily need Harry Kane next summer. But if Manchester City lose Haaland, if Haaland said he wants to go, and there's all those contract clauses baked into that contract that allows him to get out for a relatively cheap amount of money, then if that stuff happens, then Harry Kane might end up pivoting to Manchester City. I think that could happen. So I don't necessarily think top 4 or top 5 next season is enough to necessarily convince Harry Kane to stay. He wants a trophy, and I understand it. But where do you go where you're guaranteed a trophy? I don't think Newcastle guarantee you anything. I don't think United guarantee you a trophy.
No,
in the
City.
Premier League, the only place where you're guaranteed a trophy is City. That's it.
But Sean,
Yeah.
does he really want? I know all footballers want to win something, but for him now, with the age he's at, do you not think it's more important for him about his legacy? I think he feels like a man of honor, you know, a man with that passion to have this legacy with Spurs forever. You know, the way that we, you know, the slightly older generation talk about Jimmy Greaves, right, and what he achieved and what he did. Don't you think he wants to be Mr. Tottenham forever for the generations to come as well? Because that's how I feel, and I feel that he wants to do that. If he wanted to go, I think he would have made that happen by now. And now his trophy is going to be those 47 more goals that he's going to get over the next 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And be the leading goal scorer. I can't see anybody getting close to that ever again.
Sash, I agree with you. I also think that this argument that you're not a legacy GOAT, right? You can't ever be. It doesn't matter how great Harry Kane is. He'll never be considered one of the greatest unless he wins a trophy. And if it requires him to leave Tottenham to move to a better team that is competing against weaker opposition, like Bayern Munich, for example, if that's what it takes for him to win a trophy, then him as a player does not change, right? What he's done is he's gone, I was the best player at Tottenham, and ultimately there's the argument to say when it came to the big occasions, he wasn't really there, whether he was fit or whatever. He didn't step up to get us over the line. He does not change as a player by moving to a team with better players around him, and especially if you move to a league where you're moving to the best team that also has weaker opposition. If that's what it takes for you to win a trophy, to secure your legacy as one of the greatest, then your legacy isn't worth much. To me, I don't understand it. I think it is a rhetoric that is positioned and presented by the mainstream media who want all of the best players playing for the best teams, and I think it's nonsense. Harry Kane does not change, does not become a better player because he's moved to Bayern Munich and got a trophy. It doesn't. For me, it's irrelevant. If anything, I think if he can do it and secure the Premier League goal scoring record at Tottenham, he is a better player than Alan Shearer doing it at Newcastle and Blackburn Rovers, because Tottenham have never been the greatest, and he's done it with average or kind of forgettable players around him. I would love him to think of it that way, but the media present it in a different light, and they say, dude, you're never going to be thought of as good enough unless you win a trophy. And he's going to probably, like most people, think, all right, I've got to go and play with better players to get me over the line. I think it's a nonsense narrative, but the narrative exists. So, to each their own.
We've just got to, obviously, do you think he'll have spoken with Ange already? Do you think they'll have had any conversation at all? Or do you think they're just waiting for him to come back in and they'll have that convo then? Because that's the most important thing. Like, the media have always driven that narrative about Kane leaving, needs to leave to win trophies, needs to do this, needs to do that. They've been trying to sell Kane for 5 years, haven't they? You can take some links and some stories.
It's like, I don't know, it's like I don't know, like, I'm not going to get into politics, but you'll see certain narratives that are not mentioned on certain on the news, and if you want to go and find out a certain, like, a viewpoint, you have to go outside of the mainstream. It's exactly the same with football. You will not hear the match of the day. You will not hear Sky Sports. You will not hear any of those people present the argument that loyalty to a football club that has given you the chance, that's a good thing. You won't hear that. All you'll ever hear is, he's never going to be remembered. He's never good enough unless he goes and wins a trophy. Like it's I don't know. It's coercion. There's an angle there to get the best players always playing for the best teams, and it will always create the imbalance in football. If you really want competition, then you should allow the best players to play for weaker teams. But the pressure is not in that regard. It's money. Money drives football, and the best teams want to win the best trophies, and they need the best players to do it. So, yeah, to me,
let's
it's
hope
not.
Ange just needs to come in and work his magic, doesn't he? Get him in, have the chat with him.
Is Ange a miracle worker, though, mate? Like, I think, I don't know. Like,
well, we can only hope, can't we,
knows?
mate? That's all we've got.
I think that's
all we've got. You're right. That's all we've got.
But do you know what? You never know. We might end up winning something this season, and there you go. Kane's got his one trophy. Well done. He's world-class media. Thank you very much. You don't need to mention that anymore, and there you go.
But mate, put it this way: we've lost massive players. Spurs will go on. Whatever happens, let's hope the best. But we've lost massive players for years and years, and we've moved on. And in my lifetime, we're probably at the peak. You know, it's not at the peak right now. A few years ago, getting the Champions League final, we never thought that would be possible. When we're selling Bale, when we're selling Berbatov, when we're selling, you know, we've sold Ginola when he was like Player of the Year. Hoddle, Waddle, Gascoigne, Lineker, Klinsmann left, Sheringham left. We've sold all these players, and it's the worst thing in the world. Sold Bale.
I don't know, but like Gibbo, imagine it's not just think about Tottenham, right? Think about some of the other teams that are out there that have been forced to sell their best players. Imagine if West Ham didn't have to sell Rio Ferdinand or Michael Carrick or the fella who went to Chelsea. What's his name? The inside forward, or Jermaine Defoe. Like, imagine if Gareth Bale never had to sell Southampton never had to sell Gareth Bale. Imagine what the state of the league would look like if the players that were good enough were allowed to stay at the teams that weren't good enough in the eyes of the media. You would have a situation where it would look like, and it would just be an entirely different set of history. But it's a media-driven force that you can't deny, like the media, who have apparently no benefit in the outcome, but they want to see the best players play for the best teams. And if those players were not forced or pushed out of the clubs that they played for, they grew up in, we could have it'd be so much more. It'd be a brilliantly different league where you have like every team that would just compete. Every team would have a superstar or two here or there, and then average players here or there. It would be a wonderful scenario, but it never is, and it's never allowed to be. So it annoys me.
And it won't ever allowed to be allowed to be, mate. So, but like I said, my point just is that whatever happens, you know, I said Tottenham Hotspur will go on. We'll move on. We'll have to move on and go again. And what will be, won't it? Hopefully he won't go.
It will be a sad day, though. I know you don't get emotional about it. I'll be absolutely devastated. Whether it goes this summer or next summer, I'll be absolutely devastated.
Yeah,
devastated.
Lots of people will. I'll be upset, mate. I don't want him to go, but you know what I mean. I'll just sort of be, that's it. He's gone. He's not a Tottenham. It's a bit like, and I don't know if we'll speak about it. My feed's been stacked up today with pictures of fucking Chelsea managers, mate. I thought I don't follow any Chelsea fans or anything on my Twitter feed, and all I've got is videos of the Chelsea manager. Couldn't care less. Couldn't care less what the Chelsea manager's saying or what he's doing. He's not the Spurs manager. He's been gone years. I could not care less, mate. Stop clogging up my feed with videos of the Chelsea manager. Get over it.
Well, to be honest with you, mate, I wasn't planning on talking about the Chelsea manager.
We'll do that,
But one of the things I do want to talk about very quickly, I know time's getting on, so please bear with us. We're nearly there. Is and we've sort of touched on it. What's our expectations for next season? What is a good season for Spurs? You know, we've obviously done a lot of business early on. There's more coming. Where do we see ourselves going this season? What's success look like? I'll start with you, Sean.
Yeah, very, very easy for me, mate. If we finish top 5, i.e. Champions League, which fifth place would be enough, then it's an incredible season. If we finish in the Europa League, then it's above expectations. If we finish somewhere between 9th and 7th. I think that's about baseline. As I say, I've got the highest hopes over the project, but I just think that there is going to be massive teething problems. It doesn't matter how many other players we bring in. I think there's just going to be so much disruption, so many things to learn. I think the first half of the season is going to be difficult. If we finish bottom half of the table, though, if we finish 10th or 11th or below, then I think that we will be disappointed. So I will take. I'm using this season as a blank canvas. We'll see where we go. I'm not going to be too upset either way. However, you have to put some metric on it. If we finish above 7th, then I think we've had a successful season. 7th to 10th is about there. Anything below that, and I'll be a little bit disappointed.
Sash, where were you at? What's good for you?
Yeah, pretty similar to Sean, to be honest. I think I'm looking at this season as a transition. So as long as we're playing good, attractive football, we're competing. I think that's the key thing. We're competing, and we finish in the top half of the table. If we get into Europe, even if it's the Conference League, for me, that's a step up from where we've been. But attractive football. I want to go back and watch good football.
Gibbo?
Finish higher in the league, play better football, concede less goals, make better attempt in both the cup competitions than we did, and just finish higher in the league. Just win more games, and or if we manage to do all those things, then it'll be a successful season. If we manage to win a trophy, it'll be. But we're starting from 8th now. We're sort of like I said. What have I said to you before? We got a clean slate now. We're sort of like that. All that's behind us. We just got to push forward. As long as we can just improve on things and look like we're moving forward. Success is obviously winning something, mate. But we've just got to improve on all the things that haven't been great. And pretty simple, really.
I'll tell you what success is for me, and I'd love your take, is not to go to an FA Cup midweek 5th round tie up north for hours and hours and hours and get knocked out with a weakened side. I really would like to see us take the cup seriously this year.
That'd be nice.
Oh, God. Honestly, we've got no excuse, have we? One game a week now this season without no Europe. It helps, doesn't it?
The game a week thing is perfect. A lot of people were debating, should we be in the should we get into the Conference League? If you're going to be in it, you got to win it. We got a chance, take it seriously. But I think I genuinely believe that because of the amount of new learnings that this squad is going to have to go through, having the additional 2-3 days on the training ground per week is going to expedite the process of figuring it out. And, maybe you could go and do something in the Conference League or not, whoever, whatever happens there, whatever happens. But to be honest, for me, I think it behooves Tottenham to not have that distraction, given the amount of complexities of the changing of the guard, how much we have to learn, how much the players have to get to know each other, how much we have to all pivot towards a new system. I think being able to spend 2 more days on the training ground per week is going to be so beneficial. So I'm one of the people that are like, I'd rather be out of the Conference League than in it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm out rather than in. All right, guys. Well, I think we've been going for the length of a football match there. So it's been a great conversation, great debate. So I think we'll leave it there. Thanks to the 400 or so of you that have been watching consistently over the last sort of hour and a half. Please do like and subscribe if you like what you're hearing. It means massive for the channel and really appreciate it. Just say, firstly, thank you to Sean, debut appearance. Really appreciate you coming on. I hope you enjoyed it.
No, it's great. Thank you for having me.
Always good to talk Spurs. And Sash as well, second appearance. Thanks for coming back on. Hope you had a good conversation as well.
No, it's been brilliant. Thanks for having me on again, guys.
Excellent. And just to quickly mention before we go on, the fan advisory board, the people that are going to be selected for that are announced tomorrow. And obviously Spurs Reach have a seat at the table, which I believe, Sash, you're going to be taking. Excited for the potential opportunity that brings for the club?
Yeah, do you know what? Definitely. It's fan engagement, fan voice is so important. And I know a few of the people already on the Fab, and Do you know what? Lots of fans have their own views on it. It's not a tick box exercise. For me, it's a voluntary position. I take it very, very seriously. I'm not there for a tick box. This is about listening to fans and getting a real change. And if we want things done, we all have to come together. And I think that's the big thing. So let's just first meetings next week. So hopefully we get.
Sorry, Sash, did you win one? You got one of the spots? Did you?
No, I was lucky enough to have one through one of the allocated slots through Spurs Reach. So Spurs Reach would have one.
Amazing, awesome, fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be good as well, Sash, to maybe as you keep coming on to keep updating us and the fans on what's going on with there and stuff. Because I've got high hopes for that Van Advisory Board. I think it could do some stellar work. So yeah, it should be good. Yeah, and lastly but no means least, Gibbo, thanks mate as always.
Yeah, thanks to Sash and Sean for bringing 300 extra viewers for me and you, Craig. Absolutely brilliant. Cheers, lads.
It's been a good show.
Yeah, but it's been a good show, good chat. Really enjoyed that. People in the comments seem to have enjoyed it. We've had lots of interaction tonight, and we've had some decent, sensible discussion. No arguing. But, Big Ange is bringing us all together. It's fucking great, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Final thing to say before I say good night is we're back on Wednesday. Another pod, another YouTube show. I'm not sure who the lineup is yet, but keep an eye on our socials and we will let you know. And if you haven't already done so, please do make sure you go over to Spurs Talk Show, like and subscribe. Look at Sean there. It's fascinating content. So, I think, guys, the last thing to say is come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Spurs.